The stars belonged to the Varanthi Empire. For 3,000 years, their warships had crossed the darkness between worlds, claiming planet after planet. Their empire stretched across 847 star systems, and every species they encountered had the same choice: submit or die. Most chose submission. Those who resisted were turned to dust. Admiral Zelthir stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Endless Victory, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on his screens. Earth, the primitive aliens called it, a single world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. His fleet of 200 warships surrounded the planet like a net of steel and fire. Scan results. Navigator, Zelthir commanded, his three eyes fixed on the planet below. The navigator, a young officer with barely 20 conquests to her name, read from her console. Primitive radio signals, Admiral. Chemical rocket propulsion only. No energy shields detected. Population approximately 8 billion. They appear to be divided into separate nations, still fighting among themselves. Zelthir's mandibles clicked in amusement. Fighting themselves? How typical of lesser species. They waste resources on internal conflicts while the galaxy passes them by. He turned to his communications officer. Send the standard message. Give them 72 hours to surrender their world and prepare for integration into the Empire. The message went out across all human frequencies, translated by the Empire's computers into the dominant languages of Earth. It was simple and direct. This is Admiral Zelthir of the Varanthi Empire. Your world has been selected for integration. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Comply, and you will be given positions of servitude within the Empire. Resist, and your cities will burn from orbit. You have been warned. On Earth, chaos erupted. The message played on every television, every radio, every computer screen. World leaders who had been enemies for generations suddenly found themselves facing something bigger than their disputes. The United Nations Emergency Council convened within an hour. Representatives from every major nation gathered, their faces grim. General Thompson of the United States stood at the head of the table. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a drill. This is not a hoax. We have confirmed the presence of exactly 200 alien vessels in orbit around our planet. They possess technology far beyond our public capabilities. Public capabilities? The Chinese ambassador leaned forward. General, are you saying? I'm saying we've been preparing for this day for 40 years, Thompson interrupted. Since we first detected organized radio signals from beyond our solar system in 1985, we knew we weren't alone. And we knew that contact might not be peaceful. A video played on the screens around the room. It showed construction facilities on the dark side of the moon, massive shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt, orbital platforms concealed among Earth's satellites. Hundreds of vessels, unlike anything the public had ever seen, bristled with weapons. Project Sentinel, Thompson continued, a joint program involving every major space-capable nation. We've been building a defense fleet in secret, funded by money that officially went to other programs. We have 312 combat-ready vessels hidden and waiting. The Russian general spoke up. These aliens have 200 ships. We have 312. Are our weapons sufficient? Thompson's expression was hard. Our weapons are designed for one purpose: to make anyone who attacks Earth regret it. We studied every signal we intercepted, every piece of data we could gather about potential hostile species. We built our ships not for exploration, but for war. And if we lose? The French ambassador asked quietly. Then we make sure they remember us, Thompson replied. Make sure every other species in the galaxy knows that humanity doesn't die quietly. The vote was unanimous. Earth would not surrender. Back in orbit, Admiral Zelthir waited. The 72 hours passed slowly. He expected panic, perhaps scattered resistance from primitive aircraft, maybe some desperate missiles that would bounce harmlessly off his shields. He had seen it all before on other worlds. When the timer reached 0, he opened communications again. Humans of Earth, your time has expired. We detect no preparations for surrender. This is your final, Admiral Zelthir of the Varanthi Empire. A human voice interrupted, speaking flawless Varanthi standard. This is General Marcus Thompson of the United Earth Defense Force. We have received your demands and must inform you. You have made a grave mistake. Zelthir's three eyes widened in surprise. These primitives spoke his language? Impossible. They shouldn't even know his species existed until today. You dare speak to me in such a manner? Zelthir's voice carried centuries of imperial arrogance. You are primitives bound to a single world wielding tools of metal and fire. We are the Varanthi Empire, masters of—" The sensor alarms began screaming. "Admiral," the navigator shouted, her voice cracking with panic. "Multiple contacts!" Energy signatures appearing from behind the lunar body, from the asteroid belt, they're everywhere. The screens lit up with red markers. One by one, human warships emerged from hiding. They had been there all along, cold and silent, invisible to Varanthi sensors. Now they came alive, their reactors burning bright, their weapons charging. Zelthir stared in disbelief. These ships were wrong. They didn't follow the standard galactic design principles. They were angular and brutal, covered in strange markings and warnings. Some were enormous, bigger than his own flagship. Others were small and fast, moving in swarms like predatory insects. "How many?" he whispered. "Over 300 vessels, Admiral," the navigator replied, her voice trembling. "And they're armed with—" "Admiral, I don't recognize half these weapon signatures. Nuclear reactions, massive kinetic accelerators, directed energy weapons of unknown type. Shields to maximum. All ships, battle formation Sigma 7, Zelthir commanded, his tactical training overriding his shock. "Prepare to—" The humans didn't wait for him to finish. They attacked. The first human ship to fire was a massive vessel designated by its crew as the Indomitable. Its main weapon was a railgun 300 meters long, powered by a compact fusion reactor. It fired a solid tungsten projectile at a significant fraction of light speed. The round crossed the distance between the human ship and its Varanthi target in less than a second. The Varanthi shields, designed to stop energy weapons and standard missiles, barely slowed the projectile. It punched through the shield like it wasn't there, through the hull, through 3 decks, and out the other side. The ship split in 2, its atmosphere venting into space, its crew dead before they could scream. "Impossible!" Zelthir shouted. "Kinetic weapons can't penetrate modern shields." But the humans kept firing. Railguns, lasers, missiles that moved with impossible agility. And worst of all, nuclear weapons. The Varanthi watched in horror as human ships fired atomic warheads like they were common ammunition, turning space into a hell of radiation and fire. "They're using nuclear weapons in ship-to-ship combat," an officer screamed. What kind of insane species? The human ships moved like nothing the Varanthi had encountered. They accelerated at speeds that should have killed their crews, pulled maneuvers that violated every principle of safe spaceflight. One human vessel, badly damaged and venting atmosphere, deliberately rammed a Varanthi cruiser rather than retreat. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. Admiral Zelthir's carefully organized fleet descended into chaos. His ships were faster, their shields stronger, their crews more experienced. But the humans fought with a desperation and creativity that the Varanthi couldn't match. They used debris as weapons, detonated nuclear mines in their own orbital space, sacrificed damaged ships to save others. In 17 minutes, it was over. Of the 200 Varanthi warships that had come to conquer Earth, fewer than 30 remained. They scattered, trying to escape, but human vessels hunted them down. Only a handful managed to activate their faster-than-light drives and flee the system. Admiral Zelthir's flagship was dying. Fire raged through the corridors. The shields were gone and half the crew was dead. He activated the emergency communication beacon, broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. "To all Varanthi forces," he gasped, his breathing labored from smoke inhalation. "Stay away from Earth. The humans—" "They're not primitives. They've been watching us, learning from us, preparing for us. Their weapons are— They use atomic fire like we use standard cannons. They fight without fear, without mercy. This isn't war, this is slaughter. Send everything. Send the entire—" A human missile, nuclear-tipped and moving at impossible speed, struck the endless victory amidships. The ship broke apart in a flash of light brighter than the sun. On Earth, celebrations erupted in every city. Humanity had won its first battle among the stars. But in the military command centers, the mood was somber. General Thompson watched the debris field where the Varanthi fleet had been, and knew this was just the beginning. "Get me casualty reports," he ordered, "and prepare the shipyards. We hurt them today, but they'll be back. Next time, they'll bring more ships." As Earth began counting its dead and repairing its damaged vessels, a message traveled faster than light across the galaxy. It carried news that would shake the foundations of the Varanthi Empire. A subjugation fleet had been destroyed. Not defeated, destroyed, by a species that had never left its own solar system. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had entered the cosmic stage, and they had done so with blood and fire. The Varanthi homeworld of Vorath Prime received Admiral Zelthir's final transmission 3 days after the battle. The message played in the Grand Chamber where the Empire's High Council gathered. 12 of the most powerful beings in the known galaxy sat in silence as they watched their fleet die. Supreme Chancellor Morvek, eldest of the council, watched the recording end with 3 of his eyes closed in thought. The 4th eye remained fixed on the holographic display showing Earth's location. "This cannot be real," he said finally. "No pre-spaceflight civilization has ever destroyed an Imperial fleet." "The evidence is clear, Chancellor," replied Intelligence Director Saranth. "We've lost contact with all 200 vessels. The few escape pods that made it to the nearest Imperial outpost confirm the reports. These humans were prepared. They had been watching us for decades." "Watching us?" Morvek's voice carried disbelief. "How? They don't have faster-than-light capability. How could they possibly—" "Radio signals, Chancellor. We've been broadcasting into space for 3,000 years. They simply listened. While we assumed any species capable of receiving our signals would announce themselves, the humans stayed silent. They learned our language, studied our tactics, and built weapons specifically designed to counter our advantages." Fleet Commander Zarthon, a veteran of 50 conquest campaigns, slammed his appendage against the table. "This changes nothing." "So they destroyed one fleet. We are the Varanthi Empire. We command 5,000 warships across our territories. We will send everything. We will turn their planet into molten rock." "With what weapons, Commander?" Saranth asked quietly. "According to the battle data we recovered, human shields are primitive, but their weapons are terrifyingly effective. They use kinetic weapons that our shields cannot stop. They detonate nuclear weapons in close combat. They willingly sacrifice their own ships to destroy ours." "Then we adjust our tactics," Zarthon insisted. "We attack from maximum range. We use our speed advantage." We risk losing more than a fleet," Saranth interrupted. "We risk showing weakness." Already whispers spread through our subject species. The Krell in the outer territories are restless. The Thaxan have stopped tribute shipments. If we attack Earth with our full might and fail, the Empire collapses. Morvek raised a hand for silence. "Then we do not fail. Assemble the Grand Armada. Every available warship. We will show the galaxy what happens when primitives dare to resist." He paused, his multiple eyes gleaming with cold determination. "But we will also be cautious. We study these humans. We learn their weaknesses. And then we strike with overwhelming force," the Council agreed. Within days, orders went out across the Empire. Every warship that could be spared from garrison duty began the journey toward a staging area near Earth's sector of space. The largest military force in Varanthi history assembled for a single purpose: to make an example of humanity. Back on Earth, the victory celebrations had ended. The true cost became clear as recovery teams searched through the wreckage. 15 human ships had been destroyed completely. Another 20 were damaged beyond immediate repair. The death toll reached 3,247 crew members, each one a trained specialist who had spent years preparing for a war they hoped would never come. General Thompson stood in the observation deck of the orbital station Sentinel-1, looking down at Earth. The planet showed scars from the battle. Debris had re-entered the atmosphere, some pieces large enough to cause damage when they hit. Melbourne had lost an entire suburb when a section of Varanthi hull plating crashed through the atmosphere. Tokyo reported fires from smaller debris strikes. "We won the battle," Colonel Sarah Chen said, joining Thompson at the window. She was the head of Earth's Theoretical Weapons Division, the woman who had designed many of the systems that had saved Earth. "But we haven't won the war." "No," Thompson agreed. "Intelligence estimates they'll be back with at least 10 times the ships. Maybe more. We can't build enough vessels in time," Chen said flatly. "Even with every shipyard working at maximum capacity, we might add 50 ships to our fleet before they return. Against 2,000 Varanthi warships, we'd last an hour. Maybe less." Thompson turned to face her. "Then we need to change the equation. We can't win on numbers or technology. We need something else." "Like what?" "Fear," Thompson said simply. "We need to make them afraid. Not just afraid of losing ships, but afraid of what attacking Earth will cost them." Chen was quiet for a moment. "You're talking about Project Damocles," Thompson nodded. "It's ready?" "The prototypes are ready. The production models could be deployed in 4 months." Chen's expression was troubled. "General, you understand what you're proposing?" "This isn't defense. This is a doomsday weapon." "I understand perfectly," Thompson replied. "If they come back, we can't stop them. but we can make sure their victory is worthless. We can threaten their homeworld, their colonies, everything they've built. Mutually assured destruction worked to prevent nuclear war on Earth. Maybe it will work on a galactic scale. Project Damocles had been designed as humanity's final revenge. If Earth fell, automated probes would launch toward every major Varanthi world. These probes would accelerate to 90% of light speed using fusion drives. No shield could stop them. No weapon could shoot them down at those velocities. When they hit their targets months or years later, each probe would release kinetic impactors that would strike with the force of asteroid impacts. Entire planets would become graveyards. The other nations need to approve this, Chen warned. Some will call it genocide. Then we put it to a vote, Thompson said. But we need this option. Without it, we're just waiting to die. The debate that followed nearly tore the United Earth government apart. Representatives argued for days about the morality of threatening billions of civilian lives. Religious leaders condemned the project. Peace activists protested outside UN headquarters. Some argued that humanity would become the monsters it claimed to fight against. But others pointed to the ruins in Melbourne, to the 3,247 empty seats at dinner tables around the world, to the certain knowledge that the Varanthi were coming back. In the end, the vote passed by a narrow margin. Project Damocles received full authorization with one critical condition: the Varanthi had to be warned. They had to understand exactly what attacking Earth would cost them. Meanwhile, Earth's diplomats worked on another desperate plan. Ambassador Marcus Webb, a career diplomat who spoke 7 Earth languages and had learned 3 alien languages from intercepted broadcasts, volunteered for an impossible mission. He would take a captured Varanthi scout ship and attempt to contact other species in the galaxy. If humanity had to fight, perhaps they wouldn't fight alone. You understand the risk? Thompson asked Webb during their final briefing. We don't know how to navigate their star lanes. We don't know which species might be friendly or hostile. You could be captured, killed, or worse. Webb smiled grimly. General, I've spent my entire career trying to prevent wars on Earth. Now I have a chance to prevent humanity's extinction. That seems worth the risk. The captured scout ship, renamed Olive Branch by its human crew, departed from Earth's solar system 1 month after the first battle. Webb's team consisted of 20 people: linguists, scientists, soldiers, and diplomats. They carried everything humanity knew about the Varanthi Empire and its subject species. Their mission was simple in concept but nearly impossible in execution: find allies, convince them to rebel, and create enough chaos to divide the Varanthi's attention. As the olive branch vanished into faster-than-light travel, Earth prepared for the worst. The shipyards worked day and night, building new vessels and repairing damaged ones. Training programs recruited thousands of new crew members. Scientists studied the salvaged Varanthi technology, looking for any advantage they could exploit. In orbit around Earth, construction crews assembled the Damocles network. 50 automated probes, each one carrying enough kinetic impactors to devastate a planet. They were hidden among Earth's satellites disguised as space debris, scattered throughout the solar system. When activated, they would launch automatically, their targets already programmed into their navigation computers. Nothing could recall them once they were unleashed. Dr. Chen stood in the control center running final tests on the Damocles system. The weight of what she had created pressed down on her shoulders. With the press of a button, she could doom billions of innocent Varanthi citizens who had never voted for war, never chosen to attack Earth. Children, families, ordinary people going about their lives, all of them marked for death if their leaders made the wrong choice. Second thoughts? Thompson asked, appearing beside her. Every minute of every day, Chen admitted. But what choice do we have? None, Thompson said. That's what war does. It takes away choices until only the terrible ones remain. 6 months after the first battle, Earth's deep space sensors detected them, the Varanthi Grand Armada, exactly as predicted. 5,000 warships moving in perfect formation, enough firepower to sterilize 100 planets. At their head flew the personal flagship of Emperor Krathus himself, the Divine Right, a vessel so massive it could carry entire armies. General Thompson stood in the command center, surrounded by representatives from every nation on Earth. They watched the approaching fleet on the main display, a cloud of red markers that outnumbered Earth's defenders by more than 10 to 1. Send the message, Thompson ordered. Let them know what they're walking into. The transmission went out on all frequencies aimed directly at the approaching armada. It showed detailed calculations, sensor data, and projections. It showed the Damocles probes and what they would do. It showed Voranthi worlds burning, cities turning to ash, billions dying in fire and darkness. And it ended with a simple statement. Turn back now. Attack Earth, and even if you win, your empire dies with us. Your children will curse your names for bringing this upon them. You have been warned. Aboard the Divine Right, Emperor Krathus watched the human message with all four of his eyes. He saw the projections, understood the threat, and felt something he had not experienced in his long reign. Uncertainty. These humans were serious. They would really do it. They would doom themselves and take the Empire down with them. But Krathus was the Emperor. He had never negotiated with lesser species. To do so now would make him look weak. And weakness in the Voranthi Empire was death. Prepare to attack, he ordered. These primitives are bluffing. They wouldn't dare threaten us with such weapons. And even if they would, we will destroy them before they can activate their devices. The Grand Armada continued forward, and Earth's fleet moved to intercept. Humanity's second battle for survival was about to begin. And this time, the entire galaxy was watching. The olive branch emerged from faster-than-light travel near a small mining colony in the outer reaches of Voranthi space. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the captured scout ship, watching the alien station grow larger on their screens. This was their fifth attempt to make contact with subjugated species. The previous four had ended in failure, with local Voranthi patrols forcing them to flee. Scanning the station now, reported Lieutenant Kim Park, their sensor operator. Population approximately 50,000. Species identification matches the Krell from our databases. No Voranthi warships in the immediate area. Webb nodded. The Krell had been conquered by the Voranthi 70 years ago. According to the intelligence they had gathered from captured databases, the Krell had put up fierce resistance before finally being overwhelmed. Their world had been stripped of resources, their people forced into labor. If any species would listen to humanity's message, it would be them. Open a communication channel, Webb ordered. Use the Krell language. Let them know we're not Voranthi. The message went out. For long minutes, there was no response. Then finally, a voice crackled over their speakers. Unknown vessel, you speak the old tongue. The forbidden tongue. Identify yourself immediately, or we will alert the overseers. My name is Marcus Webb. I represent humanity from the planet Earth. We are not part of the Voranthi Empire. We've come to talk about freedom. Another long pause. Then the voice returned, quieter now, cautious. Freedom is a word the overseers have forbidden. They say any who speak it will be executed. Why do you risk bringing such words here? Because the Voranthi attacked our world, Webb replied. They came with 200 warships demanding our surrender. We destroyed their fleet. Now they're coming back with thousands of ships, and we need allies. We need species who are tired of Voranthi rule, who are willing to fight for their freedom. The channel went silent. Webb waited, his heart pounding. Everything depended on this moment. If the Krell refused, if they reported the olive branch to their Voranthi masters, the mission would fail. Earth would stand alone. Dock at Bay 17, the voice finally said. But come alone, human Webb. If this is a trick, if you are working with the overseers to test our loyalty, we will know. And you will die. Webb looked at his security team. Captain James Rodriguez shook his head firmly. Sir, I can't let you go alone. It could be a trap. Everything about this mission is a trap waiting to happen, Webb replied. But we don't have a choice. Stay with the ship. If I'm not back in 3 hours, leave without me. The docking process was tense. Webb walked through the airlock alone, stepping into a dimly lit corridor. 3 Krell waited for him. They were tall, with tough, scaled skin and eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. Each one carried a weapon, primitive by galactic standards but deadly enough at close range. Follow, one of them said simply. They led Webb through the station's lower levels, away from the main areas where Voranthi overseers might patrol. Eventually, they reached a large chamber filled with hundreds of Krell. Workers, engineers, miners, all the people who kept the station running while their Voranthi masters took the profits. An elderly Krell stepped forward. His scales were faded with age, but his eyes were sharp. I am Elder Thrackan. I speak for our people on this station. You claim you destroyed a Voranthi fleet? We did, Webb confirmed. With ships we built ourselves, using weapons designed specifically to counter their advantages. Show us proof. Webb activated a holographic projector he had brought with him. It showed the battle near Earth, The Varanthi fleet's destruction, the debris fields, everything. The Krell watched in absolute silence. When the recording ended, Webb could hear whispers spreading through the crowd. Impossible, Thraken said, but his voice carried hope rather than disbelief. No one has ever defeated the Varanthi in open battle. We did, Webb said firmly. But they're coming back. With 5,000 ships this time. We can't win alone. But if other species rise up, if you attack Varanthi forces throughout the Empire while they're focused on Earth, we might all have a chance at freedom. You're asking us to die, Thraken said quietly. The moment we rebel, they'll send ships to punish us. They'll bombard our world from orbit until nothing remains but ash. Webb met the Elder's eyes. Yes, I'm asking you to risk everything. Because the alternative is living under Varanthi rule forever. Your children, your grandchildren, all of them slaves until the end of time. The chamber erupted in argument. Some Krell called Webb a fool, others called him a prophet. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Thraken raised his hand for silence. We will send word to our homeworld, he said. We will tell others of what you've shown us. But I make no promises. The Varanthi have beaten the will to fight out of many species. Hope is a rare thing in the Empire. Hope is all I'm offering, Webb replied. Hope and the knowledge that someone is fighting back. The olive branch left the Krell station and continued its journey. Over the next months, Webb and his crew made contact with two other subjugated species, the insectoid Thaxon and the aquatic Nereid. Each time they shared the same message, the same recordings, the same desperate plea for help. Some species refused, too broken by generations of servitude. Others promised to consider it but seemed unwilling to act. But a precious few, began to make plans. Secret messages spread through the Empire's conquered territories. Weapons were hidden. Resistance cells formed. The galaxy's oppressed peoples began to dream of freedom for the first time in generations. Meanwhile, Earth prepared for the final battle. Admiral Kamala Rodriguez had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. She stood in the war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, studying tactical displays that showed the approaching Varanthi armada. They'll be here in 72 hours, her chief of staff reported. 5,000 warships, just as intelligence predicted. We have 450 vessels ready for combat. Not enough, Rodriguez said. Not nearly enough. We have the Damocles network, her aide reminded her, which only works if they believe we'll use it, Rodriguez replied. And even then, it might not be enough to stop them. Emperor Krathus is leading this fleet personally. He's staked his reputation on destroying Earth. He might decide that dying with honor is better than backing down. Dr. Chen entered the war room, looking exhausted. She had been working non-stop for months, trying to find any advantage, any weapon that might help. I have an idea, she said. It's risky, probably insane, but it might work. I'm listening, Rodriguez said. We can't beat them in a straight fight, Chen explained. But we don't need to. We just need to survive long enough for the rebellions to start. Webb's last message said the Krell and Thaxon are ready to move. They're just waiting for the signal. So we need to stall, Rodriguez said. Make this battle last as long as possible. Exactly. We use Earth's orbital space as our battlefield. We make them fight through our satellites, our space stations, our debris fields. We turn every kilometer into a meat grinder. They'll win eventually, but by the time they do, their empire will be burning behind them. Rodriguez considered the plan. It meant sacrificing Earth's orbital infrastructure, possibly even accepting damage to the planet's surface. It meant every human ship would fight until destroyed. There would be no retreat, no surrender, no survival. It's the only way, Chen said softly, reading the Admiral's expression. I know, Rodriguez replied. She turned to her staff. Send orders to all ships. We're implementing the Alamo Protocol. The Alamo Protocol had been designed for exactly this scenario, a last stand against overwhelming odds. Every ship would be assigned a specific zone around Earth. They would fight until destroyed, inflicting maximum casualties on the enemy. Civilian evacuation ships were already moving people to underground shelters. Earth's surface would become a fortress. As the final hours ticked away, Rodriguez recorded a message to be broadcast across all human channels. She stood in her uniform, metals gleaming, and spoke directly to the camera. People of Earth, the Varanthi Empire returns to finish what they started. They bring 5,000 warships, enough firepower to destroy 100 worlds. We have 450 ships to stand against them. The odds are not in our favor. She paused, letting that sink in. But we are humanity. We have faced extinction before and survived. We have looked into the void and refused to blink. Today we stand not just for ourselves, but for every species suffering under Varanthi tyranny. We stand to prove that freedom is worth fighting for, worth dying for. To the crews of our defense fleet, you are the best of us. You carry humanity's future in your hands. Make every shot count. Make them pay for every meter of space they take. Show them that humanity does not go gentle into that good night. To every citizen, stay strong, stay safe, and remember, no matter what happens, we face the darkness together. We are humanity, and we will never surrender. The message played on every screen across Earth. In cities and towns, in shelters and bunkers, people watched their defender prepare for the final battle. Some prayed, some cried, some simply held their loved ones close and waited. In orbit, the human fleet formed up. 450 warships. Crews of over 80,000 brave souls, all of them knowing they probably wouldn't survive the next day. But not one of them backed down. Not one of them asked to retreat. The Varanthi Grand Armada emerged at the edge of Earth's solar system. 5,000 ships, dark and terrible, blotting out the stars. At their head, the divine right glowed with power, Emperor Krathus himself commanding the fleet. The Emperor opened a communication channel, his voice booming across all frequencies. Humans of Earth, you have one final chance. Surrender now. Deactivate your doomsday weapons and submit to Imperial rule. Refuse, and we will scour your planet clean of life. Choose. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant, and smiled grimly. Emperor Krathus, we already chose. 6 months ago, when you first threatened our world, we chose to stand. We chose to fight. And now we choose to show you that some species would rather die free than live as slaves. She closed the channel and gave the order every ship had been waiting for. All vessels, weapons free. Let's show them what humanity is made of. The battle for Earth's survival began. The space around Earth erupted in fire and light. Human railguns fired their deadly projectiles, while Varanthi energy weapons cut through the darkness. The first wave of the Grand Armada pushed forward, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They expected the humans to break and run like every other species had done before them. They were wrong. The human ships held their positions, turning the orbital space around Earth into a killing field. The Defiant, Admiral Rodriguez's flagship, fired its main railgun at a Varanthi cruiser. The tungsten round punched through the alien vessel's shields and hull, leaving it spinning and venting atmosphere. Around her, the entire human fleet unleashed everything they had. Target the command ships first, Rodriguez ordered. Make their officers afraid to lead from the front. The human fleet had studied Varanthi tactics for months. They knew the Empire's commanders led from heavily armored flagship vessels, directing their forces from what they thought was a safe distance. But humanity's long-range weapons changed that calculation. Human missiles, guided by advanced AI systems, hunted down command vessels with ruthless efficiency. Aboard the Divine Right, Emperor Krathus watched in growing anger as 3 of his forward commanders died in the first 10 minutes. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were targeting his leadership structure, trying to create chaos in his formations. Pull back the command vessels, he ordered, and advance the main battle line. Crush them with numbers. The Varanthi ships surged forward and the real slaughter began. Human vessels fought like cornered animals, using every trick, every tactic, every weapon they had. When conventional attacks failed, they improvised. The destroyer Relentless, badly damaged and losing atmosphere, used its last functioning thruster to ram a Varanthi battleship. Both ships exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. The frigate Courage waited until a group of Varanthi fighters surrounded it, then detonated its reactor. The explosion took out 17 enemy craft. The crew of the Courage died instantly, but they died taking as many of the enemy with them as possible. This is madness, Krathus's tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. They're sacrificing themselves deliberately. No species fights like this. Then we'll teach them the price of resistance, Krathus snarled. All ships, maximum firepower. Burn through their defenses. The Varanthi Armada pushed harder, accepting losses to advance their position. Slowly, meter by meter, they pushed the human fleet back toward Earth. Human ships died by the dozens, their crews fighting to the last breath. But they made the Varanthi pay dearly for every victory. On Earth's surface, people watched the battle through telescopes and screens. They saw the flashes of weapons fire, the explosions that marked where human ships died. In the underground shelters, families held each other. Some prayed to various gods. Others simply waited, knowing their fate would be decided in the cold vacuum above. Dr. Chen watched from the command bunker, her hand hovering over the Damocles activation switch. One press and 50 automated probes would launch toward Varanthi worlds. Billions would die. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this, that the threat alone would be enough, but Emperor Krathus seemed willing to accept any cost to destroy Earth. Not yet. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system. Hold the Damocles launch. We're not dead yet. The battle raged for hours. The Varanthi expected a quick victory, but the humans turned it into a brutal grind. They used Earth satellites as obstacles, forcing Varanthi ships to navigate carefully or risk collision. They set up nuclear mines in the debris fields from earlier fighting. They even used electromagnetic pulses to disable enemy sensors, then struck while the Varanthi ships were blind. But numbers eventually told. Human ships continued to fall. The fleet that had started with 450 vessels was down to 200, then 150, then 100. The Varanthi had lost over 1,000 ships, but they still had 4,000 more. Victory seemed inevitable. Then everything changed. A priority message reached Emperor Krathus aboard the Divine Right. His communication officer looked terrified as he delivered the news. Emperor, we're receiving reports from across the Empire. The Krell have risen in rebellion. They've attacked our garrison fleet in their home system. Krathus barely had time to process this before another message arrived. Emperor, the Thaxan homeworld has gone dark. They've destroyed our monitoring stations. Then another. Nereid colonies report armed uprising, and another. 3 minor species in the outer territories have declared independence. Krathus felt his blood turn cold. Rebellions. Multiple rebellions all happening at once. This wasn't coincidence. The humans had done this. While his attention was focused on Earth, they had somehow spread the seeds of revolt across his empire. How extensive are these rebellions? He demanded. The communication officer checked his displays, his hands shaking. 17 star systems have gone silent. Reports of fighting in 30 more. Our garrison forces are requesting immediate reinforcement. He paused, looking at the Emperor with fear in his eyes. Sire, the Empire is burning. On Earth, Admiral Rodriguez received a coded message from the Olive Branch. Ambassador Webb's mission had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. The subjugated species were rising up, attacking Varanthi forces throughout the Empire. She allowed herself a grim smile. The plan was working. All ships continue the attack, she ordered. Keep them here. Keep them focused on us. The human fleet, now reduced to fewer than 70 vessels, pressed their assault with renewed fury. They knew every minute they kept the Grand Armada at Earth was another minute for the rebellions to spread. Their sacrifice might just save the galaxy. Emperor Krathus faced an impossible choice. His fleet was winning at Earth, but his empire was collapsing behind him. If he stayed to finish the humans, he might return home to find nothing left. If he withdrew, he would look weak, and weakness could be as fatal as defeat. Status of the human fleet? He asked. Down to 68 combat-effective vessels, Emperor. We estimate complete victory within 2 hours. 2 hours. Then Krathus could claim he had destroyed the upstart humans and returned to crush the rebellions. But 2 hours was a long time when your empire was falling apart. Another message arrived. This one made Krathus's blood run even colder. Emperor, the Krell have breached the defense network around Vorath Minor. The third colony world is under direct attack. Vorath Minor, one of the major population centers of the Empire. Billions of Varanthi civilians lived there. If it fell, if the Krell actually managed to hurt Varanthi citizens, the political consequences would be devastating. We need to withdraw forces, his chief advisor urged. Send at least half the fleet to protect our core worlds. No, Krathus said firmly. We don't retreat. We don't show weakness. But even as he spoke, more reports flooded in. The rebellions were spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. Species that had been conquered centuries ago were suddenly finding the courage to fight back. The galaxy was watching Earth stand, and it was inspiring others to resist. Aboard the Defiant, Rodriguez watched the tactical display. The Varanthi fleet was hesitating. Ships that had been advancing aggressively now held position. Some were even beginning to turn away, repositioning as if to depart. They're getting the news, she said quietly. They know their empire is falling apart. Dr. Chen's voice came over the communication link. Admiral, we still have the Damocles option. One word from you and those probes launch. We can end this. Rodriguez thought about it. With one command, she could doom billions of innocent Varanthi citizens, children who had never voted for war, families who just wanted to live in peace. But she also thought about the 80,000 human crew members who had died today, fighting to protect their home. Not yet, she said finally. Let's see if Krathus blinks first. The Emperor stood on his bridge, surrounded by displays showing disasters unfolding across his empire. The humans had reduced his magnificent armada to fewer than 4,000 ships, and they were still fighting. Their planet was scarred, their orbital infrastructure destroyed, but they refused to surrender. And now his empire, the greatest force in the known galaxy, was tearing itself apart because these primitives had inspired hope in the hearts of the oppressed. Sire, we must make a decision, his advisor pressed. Stay and destroy Earth but lose the empire, or withdraw and try to save what we can. Krathus looked at the blue-green planet on his screens. So much trouble from such a small world. He had come here to make an example of humanity, to show the galaxy what happened to those who defied the Varanthi Empire. Instead, the humans had made an example of him. Pull back the fleet to maximum engagement range, he ordered quietly. Maintain firing position, but prepare for possible withdrawal. It wasn't a retreat, not yet. But it was the first crack in the Emperor's resolve, and everyone on the bridge knew it. On Earth, Rodriguez saw the Varanthi fleet beginning to reposition. They weren't attacking with the same fury anymore. They were hesitating, thinking, doubting. For the first time since the battle began, she felt a spark of something she hadn't dared to feel before. Hope. All remaining ships, hold your positions, she ordered. Maintain defensive fire, but do not advance. Let them think. Let them doubt. The battle entered a strange lull. Both fleets remained in position, weapons still firing but without the previous intensity. It was as if both sides were waiting for something to break the stalemate. In the command bunker, Dr. Chen kept her hand near the Damocles controls. On the divine right, Emperor Krathus watched reports of his crumbling empire flood in. And in the space between them, the remnants of Earth's defense fleet waited, bloodied but unbroken. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which side would break first. The mighty Varanthi Empire, facing rebellion and chaos, or humanity, down to its last few dozen ships but still refusing to surrender. The answer would come soon, and it would change the galaxy forever. The message that broke Emperor Krathus came from an unexpected source. His youngest daughter, Princess Selvara, sent an emergency transmission from the Imperial Palace on Vorath Prime. Her image appeared on his screen, and Krathus could see the fear in her eyes. Father, the Krell fleet has reached the outer defensive perimeter. The garrison commander says they cannot hold for more than a day. The palace guard is preparing for evacuation. Her voice cracked slightly. Father, I'm afraid. Krathus stared at his daughter's image. She was barely into adulthood by Varanthi standards, had never known war or hardship. The Empire had always been her shield against the dangers of the galaxy. Now that shield was crumbling, and it was his fault. His pride, his refusal to see these humans as a real threat, had brought them all to this moment. He looked at the tactical display showing Earth. The humans were down to 43 ships. Victory was still possible. Another hour, maybe two, and he could claim he had destroyed the upstart species. He could return home and tell his people that he had avenged the Empire's honor. But at what cost? While he finished off these stubborn humans, the Krell would reach Vorath Prime. His daughter, his family, his people would face the revenge of species they had oppressed for generations, and the rebellions would spread further, burning through the Empire like wildfire. The Emperor closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 3,000 years of imperial history pressing down on him. Every emperor before him had expanded the Empire, never retreating, never showing weakness. To negotiate with an inferior species would be an unthinkable shame, but to let his empire burn while he pursued vengeance would be an even greater failure. Open a channel, he said quietly, to the humans. All frequencies. His officers stared at him in shock. Sire, you cannot mean... Open the channel, Krathus repeated, his voice carrying the authority of absolute rule. The communication went out across all frequencies. On Earth, in the command bunker, Admiral Rodriguez received the notification that Emperor Krathus himself wished to speak. She exchanged glances with Dr. Chen, hardly daring to believe what was happening. Put him through, Rodriguez ordered. The Emperor's image appeared on the main screen. He looked older than his official portraits, worn down by the stress of the last hours. When he spoke, his voice carried none of the arrogance from before. Admiral Rodriguez of Earth. I am Emperor Krathus of the Varanthi Empire. He paused, and the next word seemed to cause him physical pain. The Varanthi Empire requests terms of peace. The command bunker fell silent. Every person present understood the magnitude of what they had just heard. An empire that had never negotiated with conquered species was asking humanity for peace terms. Rodriguez kept her expression neutral, though her heart was racing. Emperor Krathus, are you surrendering? I am requesting negotiations, Krathus said carefully. Your resistance has been unexpected, and the situation across the empire requires my attention. I propose a cessation of hostilities while we discuss terms. A ceasefire, you mean? Rodriguez said. So you can regroup your forces and attack us again when the rebellions are crushed? No, Krathus said, and there was genuine weariness in his voice. I mean peace. Real peace. You have made your point, Admiral. Attacking Earth is too costly. The price is too high. Rodriguez looked at Dr. Chen, who nodded slightly. They had discussed this possibility, though neither had really believed it would happen. They had prepared terms just in case. Our conditions are simple, Emperor, Rodriguez said. First, your fleet withdraws from our solar system immediately and permanently. You recognize Earth's complete sovereignty and independence. Agreed, Krathus said without hesitation. Second, you will grant independence to any species within your empire that requests it. No more forced subjugation, no more conquest. This made Krathus pause. That would mean the end of the empire as it has existed for 3,000 years. Yes, Rodriguez said simply. It would. Krathus was silent for a long moment, weighing the cost. Then he looked at something off-screen, probably another report of rebellion or disaster, and nodded slowly. Agreed. Any species that wishes independence will have it. Third, Rodriguez continued, humanity will have a seat at whatever galactic council governs relations between species. Not as subjects, not as juniors, but as equals. You demand to sit as equals with species that have traveled the stars for millennia? Krathus asked, a hint of his old pride surfacing. We destroyed your fleet, Emperor, Rodriguez reminded him. We brought your empire to its knees. We've earned that seat. Krathus closed his eyes and nodded. Agreed. Earth will have its seat. Finally, Rodriguez said, in exchange for these terms, we will deactivate the Damocles network. Your worlds will be safe from our retaliation. But understand this, Emperor. If you ever threaten Earth again, if any Varanthi ship ever enters our system with hostile intent, Damocles will launch immediately. There will be no warnings, no negotiations. Is that clear? Perfectly clear, Krathus said. He looked directly at the camera, meeting Rodriguez's eyes. I have learned my lesson, Admiral. Humanity is not to be trifled with. You have my word as Emperor that Earth will be left in peace. Then we have an agreement, Rodriguez said. Cease all hostile actions immediately. We'll arrange a formal peace conference within the week. Krathus nodded and cut the transmission. Rodriguez stood in the command bunker, barely believing what had just happened. Around her, officers began to cheer. They had done it. Against impossible odds, humanity had survived. Stand down, weapons, Rodriguez ordered, but maintain alert status. I want to make sure they actually withdraw before we celebrate. Dr. Chen walked over and put a hand on Rodriguez's shoulder. We won, she said quietly. We actually won. At a terrible cost, Rodriguez replied, thinking of the thousands of crew members who had died, the scarred planet below, the years it would take to rebuild. But yes, we won. In space, the Varanthi Grand Armada began to withdraw. 4,000 ships, the largest military force in the known galaxy, turned away from Earth and began their journey home, not in victory but in defeat. The mighty Varanthi Empire had been humbled by a species that had never left its own solar system. News of the peace agreement spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The rebellious species celebrated, knowing that Earth's stand had won them their freedom. The Krell, the Thaxan, the Nereid, and dozens of other oppressed peoples rejoiced. They had been slaves and now they were free. All because a small blue world had refused to surrender. The Olive Branch received the news in the middle of Varanthi space. Ambassador Webb and his crew celebrated cautiously, knowing their mission had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. They had helped spark a revolution that had changed the galaxy forever. Set course for Earth, Webb ordered. It's time to go home. 3 weeks later, the formal peace conference took place aboard a neutral space station hastily constructed for the purpose. Emperor Krathus signed the Treaty of Terra with his own hand, officially ending the war and recognizing Earth's sovereignty. Representatives from the newly freed species witnessed the signing, a reminder of what was at stake. Admiral Rodriguez signed for humanity, her hand steady despite the weight of the moment. She looked at Emperor Krathus across the table and saw not an enemy, but simply a tired ruler who had learned the limits of his power. "May this peace last forever," Krathus said formally. "May it last as long as both sides remember the cost of breaking it," Rodriguez replied. The conference ended, and the representatives departed to their respective worlds. Earth began the long process of recovery and rebuilding. The shipyards continued to work, now building exploration vessels as well as warships. Humanity had survived its trial by fire and emerged as a recognized power in the galactic community. But Earth did not forget the lessons of the war. Every human child learned about the battles, about the crews who sacrificed everything to protect their home. The Damocles network remained operational, hidden and waiting, a silent reminder of humanity's resolve. In the years that followed, Earth established diplomatic relations with dozens of species. Some were curious about the upstart humans who had defeated the Voranthi. Others were grateful for the freedom Earth's stand had won them. A few remained wary, afraid of a species that had proven so deadly in combat. Admiral Rodriguez, promoted to Supreme Commander of Earth's forces, watched as the first human embassy opened on an alien world. She saw human diplomats walking alongside beings from 100 different species, all of them equals now. The galaxy had changed and humanity had changed with it. "Do you think they'll ever truly trust us?" Dr. Chen asked, standing beside Rodriguez. "Maybe not," Rodriguez admitted. "We showed them what we're capable of when threatened. We proved we'd burn the galaxy before we'd kneel. That makes us dangerous. But also worthy of respect," Chen added. "Yes," Rodriguez agreed. "They know we can be peaceful, but they also know we can be fierce. That's not a bad reputation to have." On the Voranthi homeworld, Emperor Krathus stood in his throne room looking at a holographic map of what remained of his empire. It was smaller now, with dozens of species having claimed their independence, but it was stable and his people were safe. The shame of defeat had been hard to bear, but it was better than watching his empire burn. His daughter, Princess Silvara, approached. "Father, the humans have sent a gift, a recording of their history, showing how they survived challenges and conflicts on their own world." Krathus accepted the data crystal. "Perhaps we can learn from them," he said. "They are young by our standards, but they have wisdom we lack. They know that true strength is not just the power to conquer, but the wisdom to know when not to." Across the galaxy, in homes and ships and stations, people told the story of Earth's stand. They spoke of the humans who had faced an empire with nothing but courage and determination. They told their children about the species that had changed the galaxy by refusing to surrender. And on Earth, in the halls of the United Nations where the flags of every nation flew alongside humanity's stellar banner, they remembered. They remembered the price of freedom, the cost of survival, and the responsibility that came with power. Humanity had entered the galactic stage covered in blood and fire, but they had earned their place among the stars. They had proven that even the smallest species could stand against tyranny and win, as long as they were willing to pay the price. The galaxy would never forget the day the Voranthi Empire begged for mercy after beholding Earth's warships, and humanity would never forget that their greatest weapon was not their ships or their missiles, but their absolute refusal to give up, no matter the odds. The age of human space exploration had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.